Um, so here is, I mean, these aren't really video diaries so much as sort of documentary. Well, they're not really, I mean, they are documentary, but the thing is that they're not in themselves proof of anything except what I'm saying, but at least it's keeping, as I say, a bit of a timeline going, and it just gives me the opportunity to put my statements on the record. And it's so weird, like when I went, just for example of the conundrum that I feel like I'm in, and this is why I think that legal evidence is, well, I used to think that legal evidence was inferior to scientific evidence, but from my dealings with police and perhaps courts, although I'm not really sure how much courts have to do with it at this stage, certainly the police, I find that legal evidence is absolutely worthless. And I've had a good look at the Evidence Act, and I can see that there's a hierarchy of evidence, and it's listed a little bit like, you can see lots of infographics about scientific evidence and what is high quality and what is low quality. For example, in scientific, well, not for example, but in scientific evidence, an anecdote is of very little evidentiary value, and for so many reasons. And the thing is that a lot of people can corroborate. You can have a lot of people who corroborate someone's statement or individually make a statement, but that doesn't mean that that is representative of the propensity of the claims to be true. Lots of people can gang up on other people to say things about them that aren't true. That's sort of part of bullying, and so it's, when you would collect data scientifically, it would be about making a number of observations. It wouldn't be about listening to a number of people who are quite possibly all saying something that isn't true. And that's why, democracy, for how a country is run, as far as the commons go, is fine, because it's not evidence about what is real, it's evidence about what people want. But we don't have a democracy, we don't have a democratic method. There is no, I should say, there is no there is no value, there is no evidentiary value in a democracy about what people believe, or for that matter, what people purport to believe. I mean, that's arguably worse. So, people can get witness statements, and witness statements can just be people colluding together. I mean, it can just be a conspiracy rather than a witness. And so, as I wasn't supposed to do, but I don't think I'm breaking any laws, and in fact I think police are probably breaking a bigger law than I am by saying that I can't record in the station. Of course I can't. I think you can record anywhere, and the police being a public agency, you're not on private property. You're on public property by fucking definition. They're a fucking government department. Of course, I shouldn't be recording someone else. If I'm waiting in queue, I shouldn't record someone else speaking, and I have done that on occasions if I haven't published it, and I wouldn't, because the problems with the Privacy Act, as I've said a million times before, and I've had to explain to a lot of people, including a lot of lawyers, fucking hell, like my mother, whom, we won't say anything about that, but, she got her law degree in the 70s, and while I was in creche, and practiced not law, but as a policy analyst, using her legal skills, and she came top of her class, I think. Yeah, top of her class, was the junior lecturer and all of that stuff. She says the Privacy Act is sort of the most fundamental thing that any lawyer should know. But unfortunately, in my experience with virtually every lawyer I've ever spoken to, they don't fucking know anything about the Privacy Act, and the police certainly fucking don't. I've had lawyer friends say the most amazingly fucking bonkers things about the Privacy Act, such as there are offences under the Privacy Act. There are no fucking offences under the Privacy Act. That's probably one of the problems about the Privacy Act. That is one of the problems. The only offence you can have under the Privacy Act becomes a tort with a mens rea, and that moves it out of the privacy sphere into something a bit different, really. But you can get compensated for the tort. But mens rea, people are always reluctant to put any intent on any poor innocent criminal. But, there are offences under the Privacy Act, but they're not offences against the private person. They're offences against, like lying to government officials and that kind of thing, who are in charge of the, different parts of dealing with privacy. You don't get a private citizen who can commit an offence against the Privacy Act. If there's any offence, then it moves into a different legislation. And the other thing is that, when I went in to the, Papanui station, and I trespassed police, they didn't want to, we had a very confusing, complicated argument about what was going on. They were very confused, and they wanted me to fill out the rest of this form that I'd given me, which I hadn't actually seen, and I think from the clump of papers I was given, I had very, very good justification for not seeing it. The second part of the form that I had to fill in, which repeated a hell of a lot of what I'd already put on the first page, and then secondly just involved a lot of stuff that the Privacy Act does not require. It's certainly helpful, certainly fucking helpful, but it's not required under the Privacy Act, and police are not allowed to impose their own ad hoc or preferential rules onto what people can do under the Trespass Act. And, when I said, because the guy at the desks, this is just an example of how silly, how low grade evidence is accepted, and it's so low grade that it implicitly can be non-existent, right? And I was saying on tape, well, if you won't let me record this, how can I prove that I served it on you? The most reliable way to prove that you've served a document, a formal document on somebody, is by email, because it's something that you can prove that you did, and there's not very much that can go wrong over an email server. There's shitloads that can go wrong over an email server, but not compared with the post, or doing it in person. Things. It's not that necessarily New Zealand Post loses mail a hell of a lot, but certainly there's no guarantee that when it arrives at the address that it's going to be picked up by the person who lives there, or who it's intended for. In many cases we don't even know where the fucking trespasser lives. That's half the problem some of the time. And then the other one is that you can do a verbal trespass, and I was saying, well, I don't have to fill in a form, you know, I don't have to like fill in a form verbally. I just say, get the fuck out of my fucking property and don't come back, you know. So I understand filling in the form is a very strong, much stronger and more specific form of evidence, but when you can't record the public agency that you're serving it on, how can I prove that it happened? And he said, well, you just note it down in a diary. And it's like, dude, like, it's not that I don't know how to document things that I've done. It's that I don't know how I can prove this happened if it came to a dispute. And I'm afraid to say, I don't think the police are exactly the kind of, you know, agency where I'm going to avoid a dispute about the law or what fucking happened. I mean, I've been in a dispute with the police for 21 months about that on and off. Fuck's sake, jotting it in my diary. Oh, brilliant. Well, that will fucking stand up when I'm trying to prosecute you in court. So it's the same thing with these diaries that I'm making. So I mean, at least I'm keeping these records. I mean, that is something, and you know, it is it definitely is something. But it's evidence, but it's not strong evidence. But what? Oh my god, that's really. The police gave me my other phone back, and it's basically like a time capsule of what things were like before. And I just have alarms going off fucking everywhere. I don't know what this is telling me, but it's very energetic music. I think it's inappropriate for happy hour. It doesn't say. Oh, I think I keep sneezing it. Cool. I like to keep my audience entertained all the time without any weird and irrelevant bullshit. So having made that kind of explanatory disclaimer, here I go making a bit of a statement that Deb Bowl, Senior Constable at ISU in Christchurch Central, said that I can make a statement about the theft of me by Lauren Osborne in my own home, and I can do it in writing. And I said, well, I am actually finding it quite difficult to keep writing because I've got so much to do, and I've got these cognitive problems and I've got energy problems. And I said, I'm actually finding it a bit easier to put it in writing. And she said, that's fine, we can receive that, and then we can turn it into a written statement, and then you can sign it. And I'm like, I know that she's got no fucking intention to help me. She's just, everything she does is just to have an argument. I already went through this with, I mean, I've been through this with fucking cops a few times. I know what she's doing. But anyway, she said that can happen, and I find that plausible. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is going to form part of my statement to police, but I don't expect police to do anything. So when I make this a recording, and I will have to take it into a station to on a external hard drive or something, and get them to upload it to my file. Because you can hyperlink things in, but they don't tend to want to accept those. Then at least it's on the record, and it being on the record, or even better in a sense, it not being on the record after I try to put it on the record, is just going to help me show that police are just not going, they've got no intention of cooperating. They'll lead me up the garden path, and then they'll just go, yeah, we don't see anything here worth investigating, which will be a total blatant lie. But what are you going to do about it? Like, that you can't do anything about it because they don't answer to anyone much. They don't really answer to the IPCA, because the IPCA has about as many powers as the Office of the Ombudsman has, which is to investigate. Wow. Man, how intimidating. You have the power to investigate. And then they also have the power to make recommendations. Watch out. Watch out for APCA's recommendations. You know? Jesus Christ. I mean, you'll find yourself in Alcatraz in a minute. So, just like fuck the police, fuck the IPCA, because as one of my fucking, I think I've met every fucking criminal defence barrister in New Zealand at this stage. But one of the gang has said, you know, IPCA is just policing police, and even if they're not a wee bit crooked, and I'm not sure, because there is always, you know, the adage, you know, it comes in various forms, but it's very famous. It's basically assume, it's a bit like Occam's razor, really, about the you know, if you hear hooves, think first of horses before zebras. It's, you know, if someone does something that's completely incorrect, first assume stupidity or ignorance rather than malice. But see, Occam's razor doesn't work very well for, it works, it's quite circular, really. Occam's razor works only with people who understand probability anyway. And the thing is that if you, this is my retort to Occam's razor, or not to Occam's razor, but to the people who quote it and often misquote it. If I lived and worked in a zebra, brilliant time to forget that word, you know, wildlife preserve, you know, there are lots of, like, Tanzania and South Africa and, great, I've just named 2 countries. Zimbabwe, I suppose. Fuck, what am I trying to say? You know, there are wildlife. You know, fucking Jane Goodall. You know, you live somewhere where, geez, I'm such a concise speaker. Look, if I lived on a zebra farm and I heard hooves, I'd be a fucking moron to assume it was a horse. And I'm getting to the point where it's a fucking moron to think that police saying something untrue to me is incompetence, given everything that's going on. I mean, being beaten up by a cop and then have her charge me with resisting arrest when she's the one resisting arrest. Every time police do something really dishonest and really fucking dodgy, I stop thinking that they're just incompetent, and I start thinking that even if they are incompetent, they certainly intend to do some harm. So I think there's some real mens rea there. So certainly this is going to the cops. Hi, cops. And by all means, if you're a good cop, then I don't mean that you're bent. I fucking hope you're not. I hope that you are one of these people who is as horrified as everybody else is that there are criminals amongst you. Criminals are in all walks of life. And I don't want to pull out the no true Scotsman fallacy, but I don't think it's a no true Scotsman, because the problem with the no true Scotsman fallacy is brilliant, because it just means that you can't cherry pick what you want to represent something and exclude what you don't, which is like it's a selection. It's a, oh my god, I hate having an aged brain. It's a selection problem. What is it? It's a, I really hate this because I have fairly good lay fluency in these really basic scientific principles. I have quite a good lay understanding, and it's really, really good to be able to just say what they are. it is a selection problem, but what is it? It's like whatever. It's just like you're putting the wrong data. You're choosing the wrong data to be in the set that you're analysing. You're expecting it to represent something that it doesn't represent, and that's what the No True Scotsman is about. It's like, it's saying all good people are good except for bad people. It's like, well, I mean, and that's not the No True Scotsman, but that's what it boils down to. It's like, well, of course you're excluding data from a set in a very unhelpful sort of way. You're not giving any ability for anybody to discern what's good or bad. But what I am saying is that the definition of a cop is not simply someone who has been inducted into police after training and after taking the oath and wears the badge and all of that. I don't regard bent cops as cops. I mean, it's a semantics issue, but if you have sworn in, and I've seen the oaths that they take, and I also have seen that when they file a charging document, I've seen what they have to swear to, and they're fucking lying. They're fucking lying. So I know there are good cops, and I know that the good cops get either bullied out or crushed into submission. So, if a good cop picks this up, then, brilliant. I fucking love you, bro. Brahim. But this is for police to give them the opportunity to take a statement to do the right thing, but ultimately it's for other purposes. And one of the main purposes, which I am anticipating will be necessary, is simply to show that when I do make a complaint to police, as they tell me that I can, and they don't, and they won't, that they don't and they won't. So I'm going to post this little bit first, and then I'm going to get into, because this is the intro and the disclaimer, and then I'm going to post part 2, which is going to be my a complaint that Deb Bowl invited me to make, well, not a complaint but a statement, a formal statement, which I will present to police for them to write up and turn into a statement, which I will sign in front of them, and that will be a formal complaint statement that will be filed. And now, from my treatment by police so far, I expect it to be a total fucking farce. And that's fine. This is still a very useful exercise to go through for reasons that I've given. It's just going to show that what happened to me by the people offending against me, and then what happens when I try to get police assistance with really good evidence, and the fact that I get arrested on no evidence and then charged with no evidence. Now, you can arrest someone with no evidence, or you can get away with arresting someone with no evidence if you say that you have good reason to believe, although I think it has to pass a more objective standard than just saying, well, I'm super, super credulous. But you can't charge on the fucking things that they've arrested me on, and they have. So without further ado, that was quite a lot of ado. I like a bit of ado. I'll get on to part 2, which is it's just going to be my version of events off the top of my head, and it'll form a bit of a basis for a statement to be made, which I can see from the Evidence Act and the Policing Act and the Criminal Procedure Act can and often is amended. I'm not beholden to limiting my statement to what I say here, but it certainly will form the basis of it. And then when I get information back from IR, and then I start to put together my own documentary evidence, I can put it into a timeline and I can furnish the complaint with that. So watch this space, and if anyone's got any privacy concerns, then uh, talk to the Privacy Commissioner. You know, that's what they always say. But I'm not going to name names because, well, maybe I will name names. Yeah, no, I'm going to name names because I do a fucking bad job of trying to use false names. I just end up calling them by their fucking name anyway. And the thing is that if YouTube wants to take this down, then that's fine. I've still got this on record, and I'll make it available in other ways. But yeah, here we go. Now this will be uploaded, and as always happens, within about 5 minutes there'll be 3 views, and then within a day there'll be about 30, and then that slowly rises over following days. There's almost no comments, and there's almost no thumbs up. There's often a welfare check, but I've trespassed police and I've warned the next person who requests a welfare check. I'm gonna make sure that you get done for criminal harassment, as I've said. So let's just see. So we'll get some interest. Now I've got a few new followers, and I suspect they're probably police. And so I feel like this will get through. Anyway, it is going to go onto a flash drive, and it is going to go to the local station, and it will be uploaded to my file. And if it isn't, then I've got extra evidence about what's going on. See you soon.